She was 84 years old. She had dinner with her daughter on a Saturday night. Her son-in-law drove her home. He watched her walk inside. Her garage door closed at 9:50 p.m., and he drove away. 4 hours later, a masked man appeared at her front door. He knew exactly where her camera was. He reached up and disconnected it. 20 minutes after that, her pacemaker stopped communicating with her phone, which means only one thing. She was no longer in that house. She was gone. The deputy who arrived the next day texted his boss 3 words. Calling homicide. Something's wrong. Her blood was near the front door. Her phone was inside. Her medication was inside. But Nancy Guthrie was not. Today is day 109. No arrests, no proof of life. And somewhere out there, someone knows exactly what happened. I want to start by telling you who Nancy Guthrie is, not who her daughter is, not about the Today Show, not about fame or television. I want to tell you about a woman who deserves to be known as a person, not as someone's mother. Nancy Ellen Long was born on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She grew up in a working-class family, married a man named Charles Guthrie, and eventually settled in Tucson, Arizona in the early 1970s. She built a life there, a real life. She raised 3 children, Cameron, Annie, and Savannah. She became part of a community. She had her church. She had her routines. She had friends who checked on her. In 1988, her husband Charles died unexpectedly during a mining exploration trip in Mexico. He was 49 years old. Nancy was 46, a widow with 3 children, far from where she grew up. She didn't fall apart. She kept going. Her daughter Savannah, yes, that's Savannah Guthrie, the NBC Today anchor, later described her mother as the person she called for everything, the voice in her head when things got hard, the woman who showed up. By January 2026, Nancy was 84 years old. She lived alone in the Catalina foothills, a quiet, affluent neighborhood on the northern edge of Tucson, backed up against the Santa Catalina Mountains. Desert silence, mountain views, the kind of place where people know their neighbors and feel safe. She was mentally sharp, fiercely independent. She drove herself. She went to church every Sunday without fail. She had a pacemaker connected to an app on her smartphone. She relied on daily medication. And on the last Saturday of January 2026, she had dinner with her daughter. Saturday, January 31st. 2026 started as a normal day. At 5:32 in the afternoon, Nancy ordered an Uber and rode to her daughter Annie's home nearby. Annie Guthrie and her husband, Tommaso Cioni, lived close enough to see Nancy regularly. The 3 of them sat down for dinner together. It was a nice evening, comfortable, family. At 9:48 p.m., Tommaso drove Nancy home. He pulled up to her house in the Catalina foothills and waited as she went inside. He watched until she was safely in. At 9:50 p.m., the garage door closed. Tommaso drove away. That was the last confirmed moment Nancy Guthrie was known to be safe. What happened in the next 4 hours, between 9:50 p.m. on January 31st and the early hours of February 1st, is the question that 109 days of investigation have not fully answered. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, a figure appeared at Nancy Guthrie's front door. He was wearing a mask that covered his face, dark gloves, dark clothing. On his back, an Ozark Trail hiker pack backpack. He walked directly to her Nest doorbell camera without hesitating. He knew it was there. He covered the lens with foliage from a potted plant sitting nearby. Then he disconnected it from its mount. He knew where it was. He knew how to disable it. He had been there before, or he had studied it. FBI Director Kash Patel later released 4 still images from the recovered footage. Despite the camera being physically disconnected, the data had already synced to the cloud. The footage survived. The suspect is described as male, between 5'9" and 5'10", average build. A black mustache is visible beneath the mask. He is carrying the Ozark Trail backpack. At approximately 2 a.m., software detects further motion at the property, and then, at 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker app disconnects from her smartphone. That app needed to be within a certain range of her phone to maintain the connection. When it disconnected, it meant one thing. Nancy was no longer near her phone. She had been moved, Sunday morning, February 1st. Nancy's church friends couldn't reach her. She always showed up on Sundays. Always. When she didn't answer her phone, they called her family. Annie and Cameron went to the house. They found a home that looked lived in, but empty. Her phone sitting inside, her medication sitting inside, her purse, her belongings. Everything she would need if she had left voluntarily. And near the front door, blood. Forensic testing later confirmed it was Nancy's. The Pima County Sheriff's Department was called at 12:15 p.m. Within minutes of arriving, a deputy sent a text to Sheriff Chris Nanos. 3 words. "Doesn't look right, we're calling homicide." Sheriff Nanos told reporters days later, "At that moment I knew this was no longer a missing persons case." By February 2nd, the FBI was brought in. The case was officially designated a criminal investigation, and the search for Nancy Guthrie began in earnest. What followed was one of the most extensive missing persons investigations in Arizona history. Pima County Sheriff's deputies, FBI agents from the Phoenix Field Office, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, search and rescue teams, aerial resources, drones, police dogs, hundreds of volunteers. On February 10th, FBI Director Kash Patel took the unusual step of personally releasing the surveillance images on his social media. 4 black and white photographs. The masked man, the backpack, the gloved hands reaching toward the camera. Tips flooded in. Ransom notes arrived at 2 local Tucson TV stations, Cold and K-Gun. The notes demanded $6 million in Bitcoin with a deadline of February 9th. Savannah Guthrie went on camera and said publicly, "We received your message. We are ready to talk. We will pay." The deadline passed. No contact, no proof of life. One of the ransom notes was later determined to be sent by an imposter, a person with no connection to the actual kidnapping who had seized on the national attention. That person was arrested, but investigators stressed the imposter's arrest did not resolve the case. At 100 days, this is where the investigation stands. DNA was collected from inside Nancy's home. A hair sample was sent first to a private forensic lab in Florida. Then in May 2026, it was shipped to the FBI's state-of-the-art crime lab in Quantico, Virginia. Forensic genetic genealogy, the same science that identified the Golden State Killer after decades, the same science that cracked the Idaho 4 murders. If the DNA profile is strong enough, investigators can trace it through genealogy databases to living relatives of the contributor and work backwards to identify who left it. But there is a challenge. A former FBI supervisory special agent told CBS News, "If you don't have a good profile, you may not see all the genetic relatives. An incomplete profile can make genetic genealogy difficult, ambiguous, or even impossible." The black gloves found 2 miles from Nancy's home, which initially generated excitement, turned out to be a dead end. The DNA on those gloves was traced to a local restaurant worker with 0 connection to the investigation. The hair sample at Quantico is now the most significant piece of physical evidence in this case. Something else has been happening alongside the investigation, and it matters. In early May 2026, FBI Director Kash Patel publicly stated that the FBI had initially been kept out of the investigation by the Pima County Sheriff's Department. He said there had been friction between federal and local law enforcement. The Sheriff's Department pushed back. They said the FBI was promptly notified and that there was no deliberate exclusion. The acting U.S. Attorney General stepped in and said a coordinated approach was needed. He said, "We are in complete cooperative mode with local law enforcement. Nobody likes interagency squabbles. That doesn't help the investigation." Then, as of May 18, 2026, Sheriff Nanos confirmed to People magazine that he is no longer directly communicating with the Guthrie family. The FBI has now taken over all liaison responsibilities. A former FBI special agent told News Nation, "I wonder who cut off the communication. Was it the family or was it him?" This shows a confidence in the family to deal with the FBI, and not with the Pima County Sheriff under the cloud he's unfortunately operating with. On Mother's Day, May 11, 2026, Savannah Guthrie posted a video on social media. In the video, she showed photos of her mother over the years. Nancy laughing, Nancy with the grandchildren, Nancy at family gatherings, a whole life in photographs. Savannah wrote in the caption, "We will never stop looking for you. We will never be at peace until we find you. Someone knows something that can make the difference. Please keep praying." I also want to address something directly. In the weeks after Nancy's disappearance, social media turned its attention to Tommaso Cioni, the last person to see Nancy, her son-in-law. He was harassed online. His neighborhood was staked out. Accusations were made without any evidence. On February 16th, Sheriff Nanos made a direct and unambiguous statement. He said, "The family has been nothing but cooperative. They are victims." To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel. Every member of the family was officially cleared, every single one of them. I'm saying it clearly on this channel. The family are victims. Any theory that targets them is not only wrong, it is harmful. 109 days. Here is what we know for certain. Someone planned this. You do not show up at someone's front door at 1:47 in the morning wearing a mask and gloves and go directly to the doorbell camera unless you have done your homework. This took preparation. This took knowledge of her home, her routines, possibly her schedule that evening. Someone knew she would be alone. Someone knew about the camera. Someone brought the equipment to carry her out, or got her to leave under threat. The ransom note suggested money was the motive. $6 million in Bitcoin pointed to someone who believed the Guthrie family, with Savannah's estimated $40 million net worth, could pay. But no proof of life was ever provided. The deadlines passed with silence, which raises a question nobody has answered publicly. If this was a kidnapping for ransom, where is the follow-up? Where is the proof of life? Why go to all this trouble and then disappear into silence? And if something happened to Nancy that night, if she was harmed, where is she? The entire Catalina foothills and surrounding desert has been combed. Nothing beyond the evidence at her door. Sheriff Nanos said just days ago, "When the labs tell us there's nothing else we can do, then maybe we've got a cold case. But right now, the labs are not telling us that." He believes an arrest will be made. The DNA at Quantico may be the answer. A car caught on a Ring camera in the neighborhood is being investigated. And somewhere, someone is living with what they know. Nancy Guthrie was 84 years old. She was a widow who rebuilt her life after losing her husband at 46. She was a mother who showed up, a grandmother who was present, a churchgoer who never missed a Sunday. She had dinner with her daughter. She went home. Her garage door closed at 9:50 p.m. on January 31st, 2026. And she has not been seen since. 109 days. Her daughter Savannah wrote on Mother's Day, "We will never stop looking for you. If you have any information, any detail, however small, however insignificant it seems, please contact the Pima County Sheriff's Department at 5203-514900 or the FBI tip line at 1-800-CALL-FBI. The reward is over $1.2 million. What do you think happened to Nancy Guthrie? I want to know your theory. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And if this case develops, come back. Drop the update in the comments. We are watching this one together. Subscribe to Strange Crime, because we don't stop following a story until there's an answer.